So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR's Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, Dave Bruno. I'm flying solo again. Bob, the president of the Order and Sons and Daughters of Italy, is down in Florida for the convention. And we just keep it going here on Nothing But the Truth, delivering value and getting into the stories of some high-level, accomplished, successful people. And we're lucky to have Alex Ganz here today. Alex is a highly motivated professional with a diverse background in recruiting, franchise consulting, strategic business partnerships, and entrepreneurship. With over 12 years of experience in business development, sales, and leadership, Alex has made significant contributions to global entities and multiple startups in the recruitment, technology, and product development and Web3 space. Alex and I, we met at a networking event. We had some time together to talk amongst some of our friends with like-minded goals, and I'll tell you what, man, one of the better dinners I've had with you guys. We had fun. And really just talking about all of the successes. And one of the things that we're going to get into is the program 75 Hard, which is a physical, mental program that has a criteria to basically, work on your diet, no cheat meals, 2 workouts a day, staying off the alcohol. And I know, Alex, that was a memorable and transformative program that you did. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But Alex, if you could, for my audience, please just generally introduce yourself to the crew.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me, David. It's a pleasure to be here. So as you mentioned, my name is Alex Ganz. So I kind of consider myself a corporate professional, but / entrepreneur in the sense that I do a little bit of everything where I work full time in the recruitment industry. I lead a team and recruit primarily in the engineering and manufacturing space, helping candidates and clients secure new business opportunities, new jobs, everything as such. And then I also am a participant in a few different startups, one in the Web3 space as well. We're building actually a dating application, which is really exciting as it's almost completed. And then also in product development, which we're actually coming out with a color changing phone case and color changing nails that will all be controlled through an app. So I guess you could say I like to keep pretty busy.
Oh, sure. I mean, with the technology, there's so much growth going on. You mentioned Web3 too. For those that don't know, give us a little background on what in the world Web3 is.
Yeah, so Web3 is essentially the next generation of the internet in some extent, right? So everything right now is pretty much Web2. Web3 will give you the opportunity to pretty much utilize the blockchain, which everything is going to be able to be stored there. So what we're doing with the dating app is, everything is going to be through what's called KYC process, where you're going to be able to verify who this person is that you're working with. And that's all going to be done through Web3 technology. Not who you're working with, but who you're actually dating and meeting, to really avoid the catfishing, avoid some of the stuff that you see as a common issue in the space. And what's nice about it too is everything is verifiable, right? So you can go back to the blockchain and you can see, what was done when and where. So that's a pretty high level, just kind of layman's term, if you will, but it's very exciting. And there's actually people already developing a Web 5, which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah, sure. And the conversation also includes cryptocurrency, right? With the Bitcoin and the Ethereum and things like that. Alex, before we get into your background a little bit more, I wonder, in light of the FTX and the Sam Bankman-Fried allegations, I think consumer confidence has really come down off the Web3 stuff. You're in the space. How do you feel about that? And what do you think about the consumer response or confidence coming down in light of some of these high profile cases?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the one thing to differentiate yourself is with crypto and with blockchain technology. There are two different things in that sense, where crypto is, a form of currency, can be considered security, and that's the biggest, right now topic of conversation. Whereas blockchain is a type of technology that really is going to be here for the near future and forever. It's where we're going to start to operate, sooner rather than later. And so I think from the standpoint of what we're doing, it really doesn't have anything to do in the sense of the crypto side of things, because we're not going to really have any value exchange in that sense. But we are going to be just really utilizing the technology that it has to offer, which, users on their own data, I mean, there's just so many different things, but as of right now, it is a sensitive topic just because of everything that's going on. So the common user really doesn't know the difference. So they really lump sum it as one, right? So, it's definitely an interesting time. So I think that's where projects like what we're doing is trying to differentiate ourselves and really show that, what we're doing has nothing to do with cryptocurrency.
Yeah, without a doubt. So take a couple steps back. I mean, tell me about your education. High school going into college, what were you studying and what did you envision your later life would be back then?
Yeah. So, as a kid growing up, I was always a little entrepreneur, getting into things and doing different things. And, my mom would buy me a bag of lollipops. I would sell them at school in middle school and get in trouble for that. And then, recycling cans. So I really found this niche, if you will, of just being kind of an entrepreneur at a very young age. So going into school, I was never the best, school participant, if you will. I had a hard time focusing, had a hard time really just paying attention to things that I wasn't interested in. So after high school, I went to military school in ninth grade. I remember my parents having that conversation at the kitchen table when I was in eighth grade, like, we got to do something with them. So, Army Navy Academy in Carlsbad was the place for me. It was an all boys boarding school. So, I threw a tantrum, once I heard that, but once I went there, it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever experienced. Just having that ability to work and live with really folks your age, at the time, which luckily I wasn't the youngest as a freshman. I was, they had middle school there too, but, we lived there pretty much 5 days a week. We were able to go home on the weekends after the first couple months, and it was a really good experience. Sophomore year, decided to try, school locally. That didn't work out well, so back to military school we go. And then junior, senior year, I went to a private Catholic school because my parents missed me. And then, it came down to a point where I was never really going to get into a big school. My dad was like, look, I'll pay for you to get to any college you want. You just got to get in, which I was like, well, that's probably not going to happen. So I just started doing different things, different sales roles, got into, worked everywhere from Subway. And then I worked at washing cars at Porsche San Diego, where I'm originally from. And funny enough, I walked into the general manager's door the first day I started and was like, I'm going to sell cars here one day. And he's like, all right, kid, like, grab some manuals, like, go back to the, back of the dealership and go wash cars. Fast forward 3 years later, I was the youngest salesperson there. So that's kind of how my, early on into the corporate world or entrepreneurship as well started.
And what drew you to sales? I mean, anything specific? And I guess maybe you had the qualities and characteristics that meshed well into the industry?
Yeah, so I've been called a social butterfly many times, and someone who doesn't shut up at times as well. So I think, all right, I got the gift of gab. So I figure, where can I make a lot of money? Because I always envisioned a really good life and, doing things that most people wouldn't want to do or could ever dream of. So I said, all right, how can I get there? And sales is really one of the ways, if, unless you're a lawyer, really strong engineer, a doctor, the only way you're really else going to get there is through sales, right? So, or business ownership, which is sales at the end of the day. So, that's really what drew me to sales, was just the opportunity and how many other opportunities you can move into, from just being really good at it.
Yeah, sales. I mean, I talk about the parts of the business regularly, and sales is in everything, really. I mean, you need to be able to make the phones ring, get the leads. You need to have sales lined up to convert. And then you need operations to do whatever it is. It could be a law office. It could be a dental office, a medical office, a construction company, a recruiting firm, whatever it is. Leads, sales, and operations. What about the other stuff? Marketing. I'm a marketing guy. I love marketing. I love landing pages and ebooks and things like that. Do you ever have any interest into that area?
So when I was doing my franchise consulting, it was an aspect that I had to learn how to do because it was very self-employed. I didn't have a team. I didn't have the resources that I do, like in my recruitment role. So I did have to create landing pages. I had to create drip campaigns. I had to create marketing campaigns. I had to figure out ways to be creative, social media, different things as such. So, I wouldn't say I'm the best at it or it's my number one thing that I enjoy doing. But, it is an aspect that is important because sales and marketing go, hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you can't do it all. I mean, that's the definition of insanity, is that one person thinking they could handle all three does not work. I mean, we've learned that personally at this business through COVID, and our expansion has allowed us to delegate. But to your point, I think the foundational knowledge to each part of the business is essential, not only to understand, but it's not just a blind delegate. I mean, we talk about delegation frequently. Delegating is important. Blind delegation is very, very dangerous. You could be taken advantage of. You don't know what the performance indicators are, how to follow up, and how to go after it. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, delegation is hard for me sometimes because I am somewhat of a control freak, and I feel like no one else is going to do it as good as I will. And that comes from candidate management. And my recruitment role is a perfect example. We do a lot of splits where we work 50-50. I work with a client, they work with a candidate, and I'm just like, did you ask this? Did you ask this? What's this? Da-da-da. So it's a part, I think, of learning how to be a leader and learning how to remove yourself from situations that are going to, and trusting in people. I think entrusting in people is super important. And making sure that your expectations align with one another. Otherwise, you will have that issue. But I would agree that I think delegation is super important. Giving people, to empower them, to allow them to make those decisions, even though it might be hard for you to take your hand off everything, right?
Yeah, great stuff. We're going to get into a lot more after the break, but believe it or not, we're halfway done already. We're going into the commercial. Nothing But the Truth on WMTR. I'm Dave Bruno with Alex Ganz, and we're going to be back after the commercial break. We'll see you then.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
And we're back on WMTR. This is Nothing But the Truth with your host, Dave Bruno. We're back with Alex Ganz, who's really a specialist in recruiting. And I do want to get to the recruiting. But, from the sales position that you had at the car dealership, did you go right into recruiting? And how did we get from point A to where we are now?
Yeah, so great question. So essentially, once I worked at Porsche San Diego, I did that for a few years. I then got out of the car business, went into different marketing and sales roles actually, and tried a couple of things. And at the time of my life, I was in my early 20s and I just wasn't really happy with what I was doing. So I was living in San Diego at the time. I decided that I wanted to try something completely new, which if we had an hour, I'd probably be able to explain it all to you. But completely got into a brand new business that I had learned and required me to move across country, believe it or not. So I was living in nice sunny San Diego, flip-flops and t-shirts. And I told my dad I wanted to move to Connecticut. And so he was like, have you even been to Connecticut? Have you heard of Connecticut before? You all of a sudden want to move there now? And long story short, I was basically going to help take over a business that was just, there was no life in saving this thing. Like it was dead from the beginning. And my dad was driving me across country. I remember like it was yesterday and he was like, Alex, this thing is not going to work. Like, just know you always have a home if you want to come back home and this and that. I'm like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to figure it out. And I think that's where that entrepreneur spirit kind of kicked in and really wanted to see like, let's try to do this. So fast forward 3 months, it didn't work. That was proven. And my dad calls me, he goes, so what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't want to come home because of my ego and my pride. I don't want people to know I'm a failure. So I did what I did best. I got back into the car sales business. So I was living in New Hampshire for 3 months, moved down to Connecticut, moved in with my cousins and just got back on my feet and started selling cars actually at a location called Miller Motor Cars, where I was primarily selling Maseratis and then moved into their bigger showroom, which we had selling Maserati, Ferrari, Bentley, all of that good stuff. So it was really fun. A year and a half, in the north, in Connecticut there, and got to drive some really cool cars, meet some really influential people like Tommy Hilfiger, Ralph Lauren, just to name a few, and really enjoyed it. And spent about a year and a half to 2 years there, and then I was headhunted to go work for my previous company, which is a global recruitment firm, and then that's spent there 4 years. Was promoted 5 times, was running the office, and then I came to my new firm where I'm at now.
Yeah, Jobot, right?
Jobot, yep.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's a pretty innovative recruiting company that's doing some great things out there. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we always pride ourselves by leading with kindness and respect. Heidi, who is our CEO, this isn't her first rodeo. She sold her previous company for a very successful 9 figures, took a 5-year break, and then she started Jobot on a napkin with my VP and 2 other co-founders at dinner. And, they said, how can we build a new technology company, recruitment firm? And I say that because we've really focused on our technology. We incorporate AI in a lot of things that we're doing. We probably were one of the first companies to incorporate AI in, our system that we use, our database. We started in October of 2018. We have over 770 recruiters in less than 5 years, with 85%, I would say, of remote. And over $350 million in lifetime revenue. So it's a really exciting time.
Wow, this is a big topic for a lot of business owners. In the way that we have it right now, it's tough to find employees. Not only is it tough to find good employees, but it's also tough to retain employees. So what do you think about this market right now for workers and what the culture is at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, so where I've really found my bread and butter was in engineering and manufacturing, primarily working with aerospace and defense clients. So I did a lot of the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that a lot of the big primes, the Lockheed Martins, Raytheons of the world. And what I liked about working with those types of candidates as well is they're very, very focused on what they want. They're very usually loyal employees. So it was a little bit different. It was a bit of an anomaly. But then at Jobot, what makes us really unique is we can recruit with whatever industry we want. So I actually started learning tax, working with CPA firms, public accounting companies. And for tax, for instance, it was the first time ever you would do your taxes remotely. I mean, you never would really see that. You do your taxes, you go into an office and sit down with your accountant or your CPA. But here during the pandemic, they had to adapt. And so tax became a huge boom for at least us at Jobot, because we had to really adapt to the new ways of things. So, we were getting a good candidate on a Monday, and on Friday they would have 2-3 offers in hand. Like that quickly, it was moving. So it became an interesting experience because a lot of CPA firms unfortunately, people were overinflating their compensation. It was super competitive, a lot of counter offers, candidates accepting jobs, not showing up. So it was an interesting period. I think now things are starting to cool down a little bit, which is good to see, but it's definitely interesting because each industry is unique, based off of the economy.
Sure. Yeah. Look, you've been successful, and certainly I've been watching a lot of things that you've been doing, especially the 75 Hard program. I mentioned it in the introduction. Andy Frisella is a mentor out there, and he has this program, 75 Hard. Tell us what it is and what it meant for you.
Yeah, so 75 Hard was a really interesting time that I did that. At the time, I was relocating from Connecticut to Florida. I was going through a breakup. I was going through a lot of personal things, starting a new job. So at the time, it was the best thing I could have probably ever been doing at the time. And basically what it is, it's a mental challenge in that sense, where it's physical, yes, but you basically are doing 2 workouts a day. At the time, it was the middle of winter, so working out in Connecticut outside wasn't the most fun. But you're doing 2 workouts a day, even if one's a walk. You're drinking a gallon of water, no alcohol for 75 days. You're watching your meals, making sure you're eating healthy. You take a picture every day, a progress picture, which is really cool to kind of watch yourself transition. And then I believe, let me see if I'm not mistaken. Oh, you would read 10 pages of a book every day. Yeah. Which was really something that was hard for me to do. I wasn't a big reader. I always drink a lot of water, so that was pretty easy, but just like the meal prepping, not going out, that kind of stuff was definitely new for me.
Sure. And that personal development area, that's really what that gets to, that component right there. Man, I can't say enough about the information out there. Anybody that follows us knows I'm a big believer in Tony Robbins and Ed Milet, Dean Graziosi. What about you? You have any mentors, any content creators that you regularly follow? Yeah,
so I like Jordan Peterson. I think from like a scientific, like legit, like logical perspective. Dr. Huberman is really good. Tim Grover, motivation. Ed Milet, of course. Andy Frisella, he's good. He's not for the faint of heart. He can be a little bit rough and raw, but I tend to like that more. But a lot of the bigger names is definitely people I watch, and also some of the other people as well, like our CEO Heidi. I mean, I listen to a lot of the things she says and does, and she's a very successful entrepreneur. So I like to diversify in that sense.
Yeah, awesome. What about habits and rituals? I mean, is there anything that you've baked into your daily routines that help you get through your days and stay in a positive mindset?
Yeah, I think breaking things up. I like to just take my walk in the middle of the day, even though it's sometimes not ideal, but I do like to give myself some time to just get some vitamin D, go for a walk, grab a coffee, come back to it. Another thing is just trying to be more even keel. So at times I'd be very high and sometimes very low, and really trying to monitor that and manage that. I know myself, I'm not the most structured person. So really being structured is important to me. So writing out my schedule every single day, holding myself accountable. If I miss something, whether it was a workout or even to send a specific email, I just look back and try to figure out, why did I not do that? Like, what was important at that time? So just trying to hold yourself accountable as much as you can, is really how I try to focus, my day and structure.
Yeah, absolutely. What about maintaining positivity? Look, there's a lot of distractions out there. I was listening to some statistics about how often people are on social media, and it's mind-blowing to me that so many people are just wrapped up into their feed and their DMs, and it goes on and on. It could be social media, it could be fantasy football or athletics or whatever. I think there's tons of distractions out there. How have you managed to get through all of this and maintain your positivity?
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. There's a lot of distractions. I work from home 5 days a week. So at times it's really easy. I have 3 monitors and I can have, one thing here, one thing here, one thing here. So it's a little distracting, but I think, I try to keep myself positive, reading a lot of different quotes and different things, and, watching a lot of positivity videos, because I know it's easy to go down a rabbit hole, and the world is, unfortunately not the best right now. So there's a lot of negativity out there. But it was funny because I started posting quotes pretty often, and I stopped doing it for a while, and people actually messaged me. They're like, "Hey, where are your quotes?" Hey, I like this one, or where's that? And that actually kind of kicked me off to do it again. I'm like, if it's not for me, it's for other people who may not say something, but you could be impacting someone else, with some type of positive message. So. Yeah,
that's great. So looking forward, let's say 5 years from now, where do you want to be?
Yeah. So I think, obviously family, is important to me. My goal is to probably move back to California for that reason, because I do, have all my family out there. I want to be in a position where I have a couple of different opportunities going on. I do enjoy recruitment, but I think the end goal for me is to just be a full-time entrepreneur, running these different companies that we're a part of, or I should say that I'm a part of. And really trying to give back as much as possible. Sometimes I try to give back when I'm not necessarily in the position to give back as much as I can, but it's always been a thought process of how can I help other people, and how can I not make it about myself and give back to other people. So, yeah.
It's great. What's your definition of success?
I think happiness. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said a lot of money, but I think now it's more so just being happy in who you are and confident in who you are. And I think at the end of the day, when you have to face, reality, all you have is yourself. So, take away everything else, the money, cars, social media, you have to be happy with who you are. And then I think as you become happy and you start to do well in different aspects, then everything else will follow. So,
yeah, I agree. Let's add a little bit to that. I think we're on the same page. Impact. Look at those quotes that you put out there. There are people watching us, Alex, right? And sometimes they may not be vocal about it, but I know they're watching, so role model, Brandon Burchard is one of my favorites. I'm a member of Growth Day. I get his daily fires. I listen to his motivational podcasts. And certainly that's something that he talks about, being a role model for our family, our friends, those that are watching. So I concur.
Yeah, no, I think impact is a super good word for it. I always like to, my director used to tell me, he was like, when you're in a good mood, everyone knows. He goes, when you're in a bad mood, everyone knows. So, that alone has stuck with me, and I've tried to be mindful of that and making sure I leave a positive impact in the rooms that I walk into.
There you go, Alex. Well, listen, we're at the end here. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on Nothing But the Truth. Where could my audience find you if they want to come look at some of your quotes?
Yeah, sure. So Instagram is probably the main one. It's the Alex Ganz. I had to verify my profile recently because there were some scammers trying to use my profile, but it's the Alex Ganz. So you'll be able to find me there. And that's basically the main social media platform that I use.
Absolutely. For you guys listening, that's GANZ. Alex, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story and your successes. And look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you again. Take care.
Absolutely. And for everybody following, you guys know where the landing page is. It's nothingbutthetruthpodcast.com. We're going to be on the radio every Saturday at 10:30, and then we drop the podcast and the video, nothingbuttetruthpodcast.com. And also, we're in Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. So if you miss it, you can find it in those platforms. Alex, once again, thank you for sharing your story. I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well.
Thanks, David.
You got it.
We're the Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
To get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.